All right, Dr. Bastidas, I think that's enough time. So for those of you that are here with us this evening, and for those of you that are going to be watching this later on any of our social media channels, thank you very much for being with us this evening. My name is Bert McAllister. I am the Director for Graduate Admissions for the Halmos College of Arts and Sciences here at Nova Southeastern University. With me, as usual, is two of my staff members. One of my assistant directors, Miss Megan Troy, who may have emailed back and forth a little bit, and also with me is my other assistant director, Mr. Theodore Uy, who I'm sure some of you have had contact with as well with this process. And with us this evening is one of our wonderful faculty members, Dr. Elena Bastidas. She is one of my personal favorites. I always love speaking with her whenever I get the chance. She is fantastic. So I will introduce her as well and let her take off from there. Dr. Bastidas holds her Ph.D. in food and resource economics and an MS in agricultural education and communication, both earned at the University of Florida. Her affiliation with DCAR's faculty began in August 2007. Dr. Bastidas' professional focus encompasses research and teaching in the areas of conflict and sustainable development, environmental conflict, community-based conservation, and gender and development. Since 2010, she has been instrumental in crafting and leading global courses, providing students with immersive learning experience in countries like Ecuador and Suriname, fostering an understanding of cultural and biodiversity. Dr. Bastidas is actively engaged in various ongoing projects, including an examination of the impact of global north migration in Ecuador and exploration of the resilience of youth peace groups in Colombia. In addition to her academic work, she has also served as a consultant in several countries, including Ecuador, Colombia, Suriname, Paraguay, and Nicaragua. So Dr. Bastidas, once again, thank you so much for being here. I know we are very excited to listen in on your talk this evening. So with that, Dr. Bastidas, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Brett, for that introduction. Wow, you boosted my ego. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm Elena Bastidas, and tonight I wanted to introduce to you this field of conflict and sustainable development. And I pose a question: is it an obstacle or an opportunity? So here we go. So today's presentation, I have divided it into three sections. Thinking about our audience of prospective students, you probably want to know something about the topic, something about our department, who we are and what we do, and then how we apply our knowledge into the field. So the first section, I will introduce conflict in sustainable development, some of the concepts, some of the ways that we look at sustainable development and conflict, the interaction with conflict. Second, I will talk to you about our department's teaching philosophy, because it's very important to understand how we work. And that is scholarship of engagement. And the third part is I'm going to present a case study. So taking conflict in sustainable development and our teaching and learning philosophy and how we apply that in the field. So to understand sustainable development, one way of looking at it is how the UN has defined it. And right now, actually, the General Assembly of the UN is meeting in New York. So you're probably going to hear a lot about what the UN is talking about, specifically in sustainable development in the news. So in 2015, the United Nations decided with all of the countries around the world that it was time to tackle sustainable development, and they operationalized this idea of sustainable development in 17 goals. These are the goals that I'm showing you here. And it was a way of taking this big idea of sustainable development and compartmentalizing it. But basically, for each of the countries that were present, it was a way of, attacking the problems that they have in their countries in a more productive way. Now, looking at the goals one by one, it's one thing, but you have to remember that sustainable development, there is an interaction, there is a systematic way that we need to look at these goals. So you have to have in mind that if we talk about, for example, goal 13 that relates to climate change, things that are happening right now in some parts of the world because of the climate crisis. There are floods in some parts of the world. In other parts of the world is burning. All of those things are connected to health, to poverty, to water. So we can't just attack one of those goals by themselves. And then if you look at goal 17, it talks about partnership. And that's where, conflict resolution practitioners and peace builders have the work, cut off for us. So looking at all of these goals, and you can see that for all of them, you have different stakeholders. So the implementation of the goals require knowledge and skills to transform the conflicts of these stakeholders that emerge during their implementation. So that's one of the ways of how you can look at how conflicts can arise from these different goals and different stakeholders. Another way to talk about sustainable development is that sustainable development has these three spheres. You have the environmental, the economic, and the social. But it's in the interactions of those spheres when you find sustainability. So if you're looking, for example, at a viable natural environment and also you have sufficient economy, then you're going to have sustainable economic development. If you have a nurturing community and you have a viable natural environment, you're going to have sustainable natural and built environments. But interaction of all of these spheres is where you find real sustainable development. So it's very complex. And to add to that complexity, you can't leave away the governance issues. And I don't want to talk too much about it, but to give you an example, if you have corruption in your governance, then sustainable development cannot, develop. Looking at the concept, and this is the concept that probably all of you are familiar with, because this is the concept that the definition of sustainable development that we have since 1987 by the Brundtland Commission. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So looking at the conflict, looking at the concept, we also see that there is an inherent conflict there. We're talking about the needs of our generation and the needs of future generations. So there are two generations in conflict. And you can see that right now outside of the UN building in New York, you can see 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 17-year-olds marching. Why? Because they want a better world for them, and they're asking the leaders of the world that now they're meeting to reaffirm this commitment to sustainable development. They're saying, hey, you have to do something for us. So this conflict is there. Now, looking into conflict, the different concepts, the most practical, I guess, concept of conflict is that it can be understood as a situation in which two or more parties, and that could be individuals or groups, have or perceive that they have incompatible needs, interests, and positions. So in terms of these two generations, we do have some incompatible interests, for example. But we can also see sustainability as a process. And when we look at sustainability as a process, it's a process of in constant adaptation to and balancing of changes in biological, geophysical, and social context. And if we look at constructive conflict as a process, then it's also a process of productively managing these different tensions and threats that arise in the biological, geophysical, and social changes. So here we have these two kind of parallel definitions that we can use. One, this adaptation that needs to happen to balance biological and geological and social context, and the management that you need in order to look at these tensions among these different areas. So what do we do with sustainable development in terms of our department, conflict resolution? Is that we always see that not only sustainable development, but in many type of debates in the context of decision making, people don't like to talk about conflict. Nobody likes to talk about conflict. So it's important to have this knowledge that conflict is not always bad. It depends on how you approach it. And we think that approaching sustainable development with these conflict lenses, it's going to help us understand what needs to be done. So approaching sustainability with this conflict lens will help identify issues and make them transparent to be transformed, managed, or resolved. You have seen, this is a very complex issue. So to work with that complexity, you also have to put the systems thinking glasses and, have that look with that, with those glasses too. And the idea here is that, conflict is sometimes an opportunity because we can transform conflictive situations and implement sustainable development, be innovative, create solutions, be creative in the process of creating those solutions, and confront our society's most critical challenges. Okay, so that's the first part, some of the concepts, some of the ideas of sustainable development and conflict transformation. And then now I'm going to talk to you about the learning approach that we use in our department in conflict resolution. And, there are many ways to learn, but we focus a lot on the experiential learning and the transformative learning. And transformative learning, we emphasize in that because you need to have a thoughtful reflection and encourage critical review of assumptions about the world in order to develop new knowledge. And that's what we want our students to be able to do. The transformative learning, of course, when the students experience and a transformation in their behavior or attitudes happen. So you probably can see that we achieve, we hope for that transformation in the behavior and attitudes of the students throughout the program. In all of our programs, we have certificate, master's, and PhD programs. And to put together that scholarship of engagement approach, you have a GP in the center of that first circle, and that's just an example of one of the courses that I teach, and Brett gave that nice introduction about what I do with the Global Practicum class. And the Global Practicum tries to give an experience to the students, to a different culture, a different environment. We go to, I'm going to use the case of Ecuador. We go to Ecuador and we experience the people, the different places. We learned, we observed. Then we go through a process of reflective observation. So we still, take some time to understand what's happening around us, but we're reflecting on it. Usually students have a journal where they journal and reflect every day. And then we go to abstract conceptualization, which is where everything that we have learned in this trip, we assess in terms of the theories, the knowledge that we have from the classes that we have taken, and then we start conceptualizing that information so that in active experimentation, the students and also the professors, write articles, go to conferences, develop interventions, everything related with the knowledge that was learned from the people and what we learned in the classes, and develop for our audiences. Now, the outer circle, it's the engagement process with the different public. So we can do participatory research. So not just research, but participatory research. We bring people that are in the communities in our research. We do community partnerships. We partner with communities in different activities. We also try to provide some public information. I'm going to give you examples of civil literacy scholarship and public scholarship. So this is our scholarship of engagement model that we use not only for sustainable development, but for organizational conflict, for court mediations. This is the way that we work. Some of the examples, for example, in public scholarships, this is an example of Global Practicum in Suriname, facilitating discussions of land rights between indigenous groups and the government. The participatory research, I'm going to talk about that. In the case of Vilcabamba, we developed a participatory baseline study of the impact of immigration. We also, in the public information networks, try to help with identifying stakeholders, their position, their interests, so that we can improve the understanding of different groups. That I'm doing actually in the environmental conflict class right now that I'm teaching. Civic literacy, the development of articles, books. One of my students and alumni, Dr. Smith, that I think I saw her as part of the participants. She wrote a book on sustainable development through the eyes of the communities. I was honored to participate with her in that book. We present at conferences, etc. Okay, so we went through sustainable development, the concepts, conflict, and now you know how we work in the department in terms of our scholarship of engagement. And now this is an example of how we put things into practice, either research or the actual practice interventions. And this is a case study that our students in several trips to Ecuador, we have been collaborating with the community in Vilcabamba, which is known as the Valley of Longevity, because people live here to 100+ years. And they are starting to have some problems there. So we've been working with them, and when you go to Vilcabamba, it's just an exceptional and living expression of the ancient peasant culture from the tropical Andes. So this is in South Ecuador, in the Andes, in the valleys. And it represents a way of living and sharing life. So about 20, 30 years ago, there was migration from what we call the global north. So that is North America, Canada, and Europe. And people came to this valley to retire. Why? Because beautiful valley, they had very nice natural resources, not polluted. And they say that the valley possesses this energy that you can feel, and I can feel it, that just attracts people. And there are a lot of the cultural and, as I said, natural resources that just makes it a beautiful place to retire. But because of that immigration, it is undergoing a spontaneous process of reinventing the social and cultural relations that makes up its tradition. So what we have been doing is we've been researching, doing a baseline study about, what is there right now in Vilcabamba. We started this about 3 years ago. So every time that students go to the field, go to Ecuador, they contribute a little bit to this research. So this process, of course, also in the midst of diverse, complex situations marked by environmental, economic, demographic, and social phenomena. So all of these forces that are happening everywhere in the world also happening here. So you have the climate change, you have, in terms of the social, phenomena, you have a lot of corruption, and now Ecuador is considered a narco state. So the situation is not good. But ultimately, we're looking at all of these conflicts that have arisen or might arise, but we want to work with them so that we look at them in terms of the opportunity to come in and transform them. But it's very complex and it's very dynamic. It's changing all the time. And some of the students that have gone several times to this play can talk about how, in 1 year we saw something, and next year the situation is different. So you can say that it's a longitudinal study, what we're doing here. So these are some of the centenarians that are in this valley, in the Valley of Vilcabamba. They meet every day. They get together. Let me show you with this pen. They get together. The local government has this program where from 9 to 2 p.m., 9 in the morning to 2 p.m., there are 2 or 3 people that do these workshops for them, and they're very happy. They spend the mornings there. But on the other side, you have the immigrants, and these are different types of immigrants, not just the people that are going there to retire, but there's sometimes young people that are from all over the world, some from Latin America, and they come with their backpacks and they just want to stay there for 1 month or 2 months. So they're not just tourists because, you know, they stay there and live there for a period of time, could be a year, 2 years too. But then they continue their travel. And they come for different reasons. Some of them usually want to be there for this energy that I'm talking about, that this valley has, and the ceremonies done in this valley. So it's a whole variety of things and dynamics that are happening. And all of this happens within this environment, these natural resources that now have more competition because the valley is growing at a fast rate. This is a picture of one of the mountains there. It's called Mandango, and it says that it resembles the face of a man, and it's not just, you know, nice to watch, but for the locals, it's a place of magic. They have these legends about the mountains, the rivers, and they treasure their natural resources. You have the church, and with a lot of people coming in, you know, most of the Ecuadorians are Catholic, but with different groups of people coming in, they come and bring their faith, and sometimes it creates some conflict. And you have the markets. And to give you an example of some threads there, that market used to be all local growers, and now the market has divided into Saturday and Sunday. Saturdays you have the people that come to buy organic food. So everything that it's grown organically, it's in the market on Saturdays. And people that are selling are not just the locals, but also the people that are they like to be called the gringos, that now have their products. So things are changing at a rapid pace. And again, we look at these as how can we have some interventions where we try to maintain that you know, life of the centenarians and learn from them, and then try to collaborate with the different groups, the different stakeholders. So how do we do that? How do we analyze such dynamic and complex situations? And one of the first things is you have to have the systems perspective. You have to work in multidisciplinary groups. You have to be interdisciplinary in your work. And that's one of the great things about conflict resolution, is that the people that come to our certificates, our master's program, our PhD, they come from different departments too. Some of them come from psychology, others come from political science, others come from business. And when we meet here in conflict resolution, we have that complexity in terms of you know, seeing the world with those different shades that I put a little bit back. And so we start things by remembering that we need to dialogue with people. We need to sit down and really, you know, hear and understand the people in the communities that we work with. We have some research tools, methodologies like the sondeo, which is working in multidisciplinary teams and going to learn what's happening in the community. working with the stakeholder analyses, sometimes facilitating in meetings so that we can understand different ways of thinking, sometimes mediating. And I think everybody that has gone will agree that we need a lot of emotional intelligence in order to work in this area. And I have put here just one framework that we use where you can probably see that the complexity that we're talking about in terms of sustainable development, these type of frameworks kind of put things in ways that helps us to organize the information and be able to work with them. So we have, with our students, we have developed a baseline of the livelihood assets, which are the human capital, natural capital, social, physical capital, to see what is there in that environment. And those assets are the ones that are going to provide the livelihood outcomes of the different groups. So for some, it will be more income. For others, it will be increased well-being. For others, more sustainable use of natural resources. And you have here all of these structures and processes that you have to understand how they work. How does the local government work? The at the regional level, at the national level, the private sector, and then the process, which are, you know, what are the laws and the policies, the culture, the institutions. So these helps us to look even at vulnerability of these communities, looking at what are the shocks, trends, and seasonality. I'm not going to spend too much here because this is just an example of some of the tools that we use to analyze. So again, to adequately understand the situation in Vilcabamba, we really need to engage in these processes of participatory action research. We need to get several sectors of the population together, collaborating and understanding the situation to be able to make communities coexist in these communities, identify their strengths, their weaknesses, and trying to transform these conflicts. So that's the way that we're working in this case study in Vilcabamba. As part of another area that I wanted to also you know, present is these are some of the things that our students in the program are saying about. So it's not me bragging about our department or me bragging about you know, what we do, but it's our students. So in terms of the cultural immersion that they get from the activities in the departments, one student said, you know, meeting other students from cultures around the world was enlightening, myth dispelling, and life altering. The richness of life, collaborating with others, and forming lifelong friendships has impacted my life in ways that are hard to describe. This is someone referring to one of the trips in Galapagos Islands, and she was just looking at things and impacted her. She says, again and again, the environmental damage done to the land and sea life was disheartening. She was connecting with the land and people. Applying theory and practice. You know, the experience served as a live and visual example of what was learned in the classroom. And to end, this is related to the personal and professional impact. So this is student saying, After real-time experiencing people's concern, seeing it, you become an emotional part of such experiences. This emotional connection changes the way you look at every problem or conflict and makes you generally more empathetic. Now I can't do any work without speaking with people first and understanding their emotional connection to the issues at hand. My work has become more targeted, more in-depth, and this has also opened my doors professionally. And these are some of the students here. And I wanted to finish by introducing you to our new program. We have a new program in a certificate in sustainable development. It's going to be launched in the fall of 2024. And I hope that you take some time and call Brett or Megan or the other or myself, and if you're interested in this type of certificate program. It's just 12 credit hours, and it's taught in fall and winter. So we start in the end of August and the end of April, and 2 classes per semester. So that's my commercial for all of you. So let me see, got stuck here with my glasses slide here. So thank you so much. And now I hope you have some questions for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Bastidas. And as you just mentioned, we do have some time here for about 10-15 minutes of Q&A. For those of you that might have some questions, please feel free to enter them either in the Q&A section or the chat, and I will moderate them for Dr. Bastidas. Well, since people seem like they're a bit shy, I do have a question, Dr. Bastidas, as always. So I know like you do get to travel as well with your work. I know it's something that you and I have talked about a couple of times and stuff like that. Is that something we hope our students are going to maybe get to join you in more as well down the road? Or is that something that'll hopefully happen as well?
Yeah, we're trying to increase the number of global practicums that we offer students. And not only to different parts of the world, but also here in the United States. So we're probably going to start bringing people to DC or to Colorado, or anywhere where we can have this experience for our students and achieve that transformative learning. I guess I talk too much.
I don't think that's the problem, Dr. C. Sometimes people get shy on the virtual lectures. They don't want to bother you too much. But like I said, I do have a couple other questions. Because I'm always finding myself whenever I'm speaking with you or any member from your department, and always something dawns on me. So not a question, but a statement. This student is actually taking a class with Dr. Bastidas. I think most students will reflect back on for life, as she provides the best reflective and experiential experiences possible. So that is just a statement of fact that I think, Mr. Kent, that I agree with as well. Knowing Dr. Bastidas, I've heard multiple wonderful things about her classes as well. But Dr. Bastidas, with the sustainability new degree that you do have, as you mentioned as well, that you're very excited. I know you've pioneered and pushed this forward. From the real world application side, what can the students expect to really gauge you and learn with you from that standpoint?
So it's a field that it's just going to explode in the next few years, because as I mentioned, just during this week, there has been this new push to be able to accomplish the Sustainable Development Goals all over the world. So this is not just a group. This is not just an initiative by a couple of countries. We're talking about the world. We're talking about all the governments. And if you think, for example, about our county, Broward County, all of the cities in Broward County, they must have sustainable development officer to deal with all of these sustainability issues. Now, they need these skills in terms of, how to solve conflict, how to deal with the stakeholders, how to, work with these different communities. So all of the skills that we teach in the program are just what they need to have in their toolbox. And not only at the government level, but all of the private companies now, they have to implement a sustainability plan. So it doesn't matter if you're Boeing or if you are Sugar Crystals or if you are Toyota, you have to implement a sustainable development plan, which means that you have to look at all of the 17 development goals and say, okay, what can I do here in terms of not just renewable energy, but in terms of poverty? Can I do something in my community? So, all of those people need to have this at least basic knowledge and in terms of sustainable development goals and how to work with other people and how to implement things in the middle of conflict.
Awesome, thank you. And we do have another question. What are the humanitarian and environmental consequences of conflict in the context of sustainable development?
Yeah, so that's something that we all, think about. You can talk a lot about sustainable development in a very theoretical way, but when you are actually researching and having this experiential learning in terms of humanitarian consequences, you are really I would say conflict resolution practitioners are the ones that are going around the world helping these situations in terms of when a disaster comes, like what happened here in Naples last year. A disaster comes because of the hurricane. Everything is flooded. Houses are just damaged. And suddenly you have in this area of devastation, the government that brings or sends money, and all of these organizations need help, not just in the specific areas that they fulfill, but they need help organizing themselves, organizing people that are going to reach other people, organizing people that are going to bring the aid to those in need. And sometimes they need with all of these conflicts, people don't have any place to sometimes sleep, and the bills keep piling up while you're in this situation. So conflicts are all over, and it is important to have some knowledge in order to I would say dive these situations.
Awesome. Thank you for that. We do have another question. Looking at the case study, Doctor, do you actually think that the people of Vilcabamba are really protecting their space because of sustainability, or do they just want to make sure that a continued tourist presence capable of attracting people from around North America is maintained?
It's both. It's both. So they can really see the impact in terms of their own lives. So before they could go to the river and be with their family in the river, no problem, no contamination, because it was a small population. Now, for example, they go to the river and their glass bottles. So it's, you know, you can see, they can see the difference, and it's not nice. It's not good for the health. They have lost a lot of the you know, bank of seeds that they had, and things like also changes in that they have you know, made, because one of the things that happened with this immigration is that people started to come and they had you know, money to buy the lands, and they bought a lot of land, and these people started buying the little farms around town, and the elderly or other people had to move you know, farther from town to live. So those things really impacted them, because now they are far from the social network that they had, and that impacted not only in terms of, you know, they usually walk to town, so the distance, it's now a problem, but also their relationships. A lot of them have these networks and relationships that were not, you know, that now it's more difficult. But they also say that they feel that these group of people that come here, they're also bringing in work, so that they have their kids now are working in construction, and before you didn't have that. The kids are now working in some of the tourist places. So, you know, you have to, it's not, again, it's how you look at the conflict. There are pros and cons, and you have to navigate those. The ethical and moral dilemmas that arise, yeah, definitely. For example, you can't go to Vilcabamba without hearing that now you have more drugs. The kids, you know, are now have drugs at their fingertips, and again, that's coming from the outside. So, you know, those types of ethical issues. In terms of policies and strategies, I don't think that it's a good for the people of Vilcabamba. I don't think it's a good idea for them to start thinking about how can people from the outside help us, because it's a situation where they have the knowledge, they have people, the local government works with the communities around really well. And it's something I think that needs to be done to be able to strengthen all the things that they have. So the relationship between the younger generation and the elderly, how the younger generation, the kids that are in school, can learn from the elderly, and reaffirm, you know, those cultural and the respect, all of those principles that they have. I think that being more focused on what they can do themselves with the groups of stakeholders that can help them, they will go further in terms of you know, bringing our harmony than looking at the outside.
And I think we have time for one more question, Dr. Bastidas. I'm sure you are very busy as well, so I'll read it off for you here. Are there situations where trade-offs need to be made between short-term conflict resolution and long-term sustainability goals?
Yes, all the time, every day. To give you an example, last time I was there, I saw these huge gas station, which I was saying, you know, what happened here? I mean, in this small town, in this, you know, beautiful, nice place, this huge, you know, station. And then you have to think in terms of, you know, those trade-offs. Is it something that they need? Probably not this huge thing that they built, but yeah, they probably need a gas station. Now, why? The problem with that is that when you build this huge infrastructure, it attracts people from the outside. People that would not normally come from, you know, the cities nearby because it was hard to get gas, or because the roads were not nice. Then, you know, now they have to. There are more opportunities to come to town. So every day you have to deal with those types of issues.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Bastidas, thank you very much. I think we've grilled you with enough questions for this evening. For those of you that are watching abroad and those of you watching later on, like I said, on our social media channels, or those with us this evening, thank you very much for being here. As always, a very pleasure, Dr. Bastidas. If you do have further questions, please reach out to anybody on my team. All information is on our website, and we will happily answer questions for you or forward them on to Dr. Bastidas herself, and she will answer them in her lack of free time that I'm sure she has with the semester right now and everything. So Dr. Bastidas, thank you very much once again for being here. Those of you who are watching, thank you as well. I hope you have a wonderful evening and a great weekend. Take care.
Thank you.